Do we allow unchecked corporate power, or do we stand with the people? So which side are you on? Do you stand with corporate power? Do you stand with the people? Stands that checking corporate power will require more than simply getting out to vote, as important as that is. If we're going to create a country where working people have a voice and corporations pay their fair share, we have to organize. In that spirit, this week, Senator Sanders rolled out his Workplace Democracy Plan, an ambitious proposal that will make it easier for workers to form unions by modernizing our outdated labor. Far too many workers who try to organize a union face intense opposition from their employer in the form of harassment, intimidation, and retaliation. And under Bernie's plan, millions of workers for whom organizing a union has been out of reach will have that door open finally to them. We know that as worker power decreases, income inequality increases for all working Americans. And there can be no political revolution, no fundamental shift in our nation's power structure without governor. He's up for re-election this year. Our governor ran through a right-to-work law in an attempt to break the backs of unions and made national headlines for his shameful attacks on teachers and other public workers. And then you have our U.S. senators, Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, are co-sponsors of a national right-to-work law, which would also demand counter out-of-control corporate power and hold to account those in Frankfurt and Washington like Matt Bevin, Mitch McConnell, and Rand Paul who side with corporations over people. And we need a president who doesn't just talk a good game on workers' rights. We need a president who walks the walk, as Bernie has for his entire career, and as he did just today on a CWA picket line just a few blocks away. In this moment, as so much feels so inspiration from the workers who are willing to put it all on the line to fight for a better world. Like the thousands of teachers who marched in Frankfurt last year, like the thousands of fast food workers who walked off the job as part of the Fight for 15 and a union campaign. Just 4 years ago, a $15 an hour minimum wage was considered extreme and impossible. But today, because of those courageous fast food workers, millions of people now live in cities and states where a $15 an hour minimum wage is law. All of you for the opportunity to be here with you today and for your commitment to the struggle for justice. And whenever the politics of the day make you despair, remember the words of labor organizer Joe Hill. Don't mourn, organize.
Please welcome to the stage, Aaron Bridges. She's a Louisville local who fights to solve climate change and create billions of good jobs in the process of the Green New Deal, and she's also with the Sunrise Movement. Thank you.
My name is Aaron Bridges. I am a lifelong Kentuckian. I am one of the co-founders of Sunrise Movement Louisville. Woo! And I'm so excited to join you all with Senator Bernie Sanders to rally against corporate power. Yeah. In Frankfurt, in Washington, and up in Wall Street have told us that our people have to make a cool choice between healthy air and water and good jobs. They tell us we can't have both. They get richer while our families get sicker, while our land is ravaged, and our children breathe dirty air and fear they won't have a future to grow up in. That's right. They tell us, especially young people, that we must make a choice between staying in our homes or leaving Kentucky for a better future. Well, I've got news for them. I'm not leaving. Yeah. We don't have to make these choices anymore. Within our grasp is a future where our children don't have to fear for our futures. A future where I can tell my parents and grandparents crisis. We are not a red state. We are not a coal state. We are a state that has been bought out for too long. We are a state full of good people that want to just provide safe and healthy homes for our kids. We want to have jobs that treat us with respect in our futures to a wealthy few who do not care if we live or die. Let this be the day that we make a new choice and we change our futures forever. Now I'm gonna yell out, what do you want? And I want to hear a Green New Deal, okay? What do you want?
Green New Deal!
When do you want it?
Now!
What do you want?
Green New Deal!
When do you want it?
Now!
What do you want it?
Now!
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage, Robert LaRose Bell. He's a neighborhood organizer.
What's up, y'all? So I'm a public school teacher, a rank-and-file teacher organizer, a longtime community and neighborhood activist, the founder of three. So of course I support Bernie Sanders for president. I know, as a public school teacher, that Bernie Sanders' Thurgood Marshall plan for public education will cancel charter schools, so bring back equitable funding for public schools, desegregation of our public schools, pay grades to myself and my colleagues. Most of all, Sanders' presidency will give all of our students, our future, a shot at a high class. As a union member, the Bernie Sanders stands for labor. And he realizes that a strong militant labor movement is essential to winning back our world from the greedy billionaire caste that has reached out for what we do way too long. I know, as a black man and a community activist, that Sanders' plan to end mass incarceration is how we can truly forge a path to actual justice and how we can empower working class people to stand up for themselves without the fear of police repression. There are three, that the Sanders presidency is the best way to give us a fighting chance to save our species from climate devastation. So the world was breaking in for my children and all of our children and the people after them. But I also know this. There's some people, good people, friends of mine, who are on the fence still. They see all these plans and they say, how? And I know they're scared, they want a sure thing, and they just want to be Trump. I want to be them too. But I know people aren't like me, because they don't know their history. See, I'm a teacher, and more than that, I grew up in this movement. I grew up in social movements. I know my history. And history gives me reason to believe in the power of mass movements, the power of the people. We didn't begin the 40-hour work week or women's suffrage or civil rights, but having the best crafted white papers, bar graphs, whatever. No, we won with mass movements. We won by people stopping on the streets, to strike and strike again. The corporate media is going to tell you that it's unreasonable to believe in the power of the people. They want you to think.
It's not true.
That's unreasonable, but it's totally reasonable to think that we're going to grow Mitch McConnell's heart by engaging in a respectful debate.
It's not true.
We're going to make Mitch McConnell believe by showing him the right graphs, the right plans. They want us to think that. But no, we believe in mass movement because mass movements work, and we know this. Mass movements are real, and that's all the things we can do with President Bernie Sanders. And if they need to, we'll just get on the pavement and all that. Mitch McConnell knows that. He ain't scared of no paper. He ain't scared of no graphs. He ain't scared of no plans, how they're well crafted. He's scared of us. This is what Sanders says. He says he's a political revolution. And it's our job to sell that to our friends, to our colleagues, to our family. People need to learn again to believe the power of us.
That's right.
Canvas, Strongman, all these people out here with clipboards looking for volunteers. There's a lot of stuff to do to get Bernie Sanders elected president. We gotta do this. This is how we win the fight for Medicare for all.
Yeah.
This is how we win the fight with the Thurgood Marshall's pay for public schools.
Yeah.
This is how we win bread and roses.
Yeah.
We don't just have the power. When we like Bernie Sanders, we are the power. Stop. Ain't no power like the power of the people. The power of the people don't stop. Ain't no power like the power of the people. The power of the people don't stop. Ain't no power like the power of the people. The power of the people don't stop. Thank you.
Stage, coming from Jones County, the chairman of the House Budget Committee of the 116th Congress. The Honorable Secretary is the recognized as the delegation of State Legislature and State House there.
Hello, everybody. Hello, my constituents. And if you're not from this area, not from my district, or one of the surrounding districts, I know you want me to be your congressman. I've got a job to do here today, and I'm going to do that, but I just want to remind you of one thing. We're going to be talking about national politics and national elections in a minute. But remember, we've got a very important election in Kentucky in 72 days. So while we know the future of our country and our democracy is at stake in 2020, the future of the Commonwealth of Kentucky is at stake in 2019. The reason we have the governor we have right now is because people didn't come out and vote in 2015. We're not going to make that mistake again, all right? So, we're here today to talk about our dysfunctional Congress. And the guy who calls himself the Grim Reaper, he doesn't understand what the role of the United States Senate is. Because of Mitch McConnell,
That guy's
we still
terrible.
have a federal minimum wage of $7.25. Because of Mitch McConnell, we can still go to gun shows, or go to friends, or go to the internet and buy guns without background checks. Because of Mitch McConnell, the Russians and other foreign interests are still to this day trying to influence our elections. And because of Mitch McConnell, billions and billions of dollars of dark money are being spent. Now, Bernie's going to tell you a lot more about that. So I'm going to stop there. But let me tell you about Bernie. Bernie and I have a lot in common other than just being old Jewish guys. Bernie and I are actually the senior members of the Budget Committee in the House and Senate. So we deal a lot with national fiscal issues. And one thing we know is that the country is not better off when you give billions of tax cuts to the richest people in this country, the largest corporations, while we fail to make the kind of investments in the American people who will guarantee us a better future. So if we look ahead to 2020, here's what I know. The future is coming at us faster than we realize. We see it with climate change every day. And the past is catching up with us. We see it with the way our infrastructure is deteriorating. We need leadership that understands the challenges that this country faces and the challenges that our citizens face. Mitch McConnell not only doesn't recognize those things, Donald Trump certainly doesn't recognize those challenges. They're perfectly content with the world that the billionaires have bought. We can't be content with that world. Our country and our democracy must change if our country and our democracy are to survive. So it gives me great pride and great pleasure to introduce to Louisville, Kentucky, the man from Vermont, Senator.
For their great music. Let me thank Aaron Bridges for his remarks. Richard Becker for his union organizing work. Robert Robertus Bell for the great work that he is doing. And let me thank your great member of the United States Congress, John Yarmouth, for all the work. John and I have worked together on many issues, and you're lucky to have such a great Congress. And let me thank all of you, not only for being here today, but for the support you gave me during the last campaign. In 2016, we were not expected to do well in Kentucky. Turns out that we came within a few votes of not only are we going to win here in Kentucky, we're going to win the Democratic nomination. And we're going to defeat Donald Trump. The reason I am here in Louisville today is not just to ask for your political support. I am here as a United States Senator to ask Mitch McConnell, the majority of you, and that is to stop using his office to simply represent the wealthy and the powerful and billionaire campaign contributors, but to start representing the working families of Kentucky and here is the simple truth. Equality, when three people now own more wealth than the bottom half of America, when the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%, when large corporations are earning record-breaking profits, make 300 times more than their work. The billionaire class that needs help today, it is the working class. Senator McConnell, take a look around you, take a look at Kentucky, take a look at America, and tell your wealthy campaign contributors that enough is enough. They can't have it all. Paycheck to paycheck. And I come from a family and grew up in a household that lived paycheck to paycheck, and I know a little bit about that. And when a family member ends up in the hospital, you're worried about how you're going to pay that bill. Yes. And if your car breaks down and you can't get to work, and you can't get to work and get a paycheck, you can't get a paycheck and feed your family. That's living paycheck to paycheck. And today in America, we got 87 million people who either have no health insurance at all or who are underinsured, and we got millions of people who cannot afford the prescription drugs they need to stay alive or to ease their pain. Here in Kentucky and Vermont and throughout this country, we have hundreds of thousands of bright young people who cannot afford to go to college or are leaving school deeply in debt. And tonight we're going to have 500,000 Americans sleeping out on the streets. So today here in Louisville, I say to Senator McConnell, stop worrying about your billionaire friends. They're doing just fine. Start worrying about the working families of your state and around this country who are struggling to keep their heads above water. Today, I say here in Kentucky to Senator McConnell, stop. Now, if you want to, Senator McConnell, you can vote against that legislation. But we live in a democracy. The Senate is entitled to a debate, and the American people are entitled to know the truth is that there is no state in this country, including Vermont, where working people and low-income people are not struggling. But the crisis facing the working class of this country is especially acute right here in Kentucky, where 10 out of the 25 poorest counties in America are located. We hear that, Senator McConnell? 10 out of the 25 poorest counties in this country are located right here in your state. Stop turning your back on your constituents. We're talking about counties where 30 to 40% of people are living in poverty, where many thousands of residents and senior citizens are trying to get by on $10, $15, $20,000 a year. We're talking about a state here in Kentucky where over 22% of the children are living in poverty, where more than 190,000 workers are earning, over 500,000 people are trying to get by on less than $15 an hour. Senator McConnell, listen to the pain of those people. That's right. Brothers and sisters, I don't have to tell anyone here that we are living in a pivotal moment in American history. Right now, our country faces more than in any time in the modern history of our country. I am talking about a growth in oligarchy. I am talking about a disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision pushed by Senator McConnell, which allows billionaires to spend huge amounts of money to buy elections. presidency which is moving this country toward authoritarianism. I'm talking about the global crisis of climate change. I am talking about a dysfunctional healthcare system in which 30,000 Americans die every year because they don't get to a doctor on time. I am talking about a broken criminal justice system, a broken immigration system, a housing crisis, an education crisis, a rigged tax system. I'm talking about the need for women to control their own bodies. About the need for gun safety legislation. And I am talking about legislation to protect the integrity of our elections. Just some of the issues out there that the American people are crying out to have resolved, to have discussed, to have debated, to have voted upon. But instead of taking action to address any of these crises, Mitch McConnell is obstructing, and obstructing. He is refusing to allow a vote on any or passed already in the House to address these crises. So today, we are here to say as loudly as we can, and as clearly as we can, to Mitch McConnell, enough is enough. Stop the obstruction. Stop blocking the Senate from taking action to raise the minimum wage. Protect the pensions of workers in Kentucky and throughout America. To guarantee health care as a human right. To combat climate change and to stop once and for all billionaires from buying elections. That's fine. You have the right to come back to Kentucky and tell the people why you voted the way you did. But you don't have the right to stop democracy in the United States. You don't have the right to prevent debate and votes on the most important issues facing the working people of this country. Stop your cowardice. Have the guts to debate the issues. Let me just touch briefly on some of those issues. In the richest country in the history of the world, it is not acceptable that millions of workers from one end of America to the other are forced to work 2 or 3 jobs just to put food on the table and pay the bills. It is not a radical idea to say that in America, live in poverty. A job should lift Americans out of poverty, not keep them in poverty. Let me be as clear as I can be. The $7.25 an hour federal minimum wage is a starvation wage. Not anywhere. Nobody can make it on $7.25, $8, $9, $10 an hour. We must raise that minimum wage, which has not been raised in 10 years, to a living wage at least $15. easier for workers to join unions. 7 states in America have voted to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And over a month ago, the House of Representatives passed legislation that I authored to raise the federal minimum wage to $15. So that's where we are right now. The U.S. House has done the right thing, and millions of American workers are waiting for the Senate to do the right thing. But Senator McConnell has refused to bring that bill up on the Senate floor. I say to Senator McConnell, have the courage to stand with the working people of Kentucky and America, not your wealthy campaign contributors. Allow that $15 an hour minimum wage bill to get to the floor. If you, Senator McConnell, want to vote against that bill, that's fine. That's your business. But then you're going to have to come home and explain to over 500,000 workers here in Kentucky who are making less than $15 an hour why they do not deserve an average raise of $4,300 a year. So that's it. You want to vote against it? Vote against it. But you come home. Come back here to the people of this country while you support tax breaks for billionaires, but you don't want to raise that minimum wage to a living wage. I say to you, Senator McConnell, it is time to end your obstruction. It is time for the Senate to vote. Let's be clear, $15 an hour minimum wage is not the only bill that Senator McConnell is blocking. Last month, very importantly, the House passed legislation to prevent companies from cutting the earned pension benefits of 1.5 million American workers and retirees in multi-employer pension plans. Now, these are people who have worked their whole lives. These are people who have given up wage increases in order to get a decent pension. Coal miners and Teamsters right here in Kentucky who are looking at their pensions of being cut by up to 60%. If Senator McConnell wants to explain to the coal miners and truck drivers in Kentucky why he is opposed to legislation that would protect their pensions, that is his prerogative. But he should stop blocking legislation that I want to vote for, that other senators want to vote for. Senator McConnell, it is time for you to end your obstruction. It is time for the Senate to do its job and vote. And when we talk about the need for the Senate to take action, we are talking about the need for Senator McConnell to stop blocking common sense gun safety legislation. It has now been 3 weeks since the horrific mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton, which have followed, as all of you know, mass shootings over the years in community after community after community. The American people, gun owners and non-gun owners, overwhelmingly want action. They want us to background checks expanded. They want to see the gun show loophole and the so-called straw man provision eliminated. And more Americans understand that the function of military-style assault weapons is to kill as many people as possible, and more Americans want to end the sale and distribution of those assault weapons. And so I say to Senator McConnell, listen to what the American people want and not allow the NRA to dictate gun policy in this country. End your obstructionism on gun safety legislation. Let us have that debate. Let us vote. And when we talk about the need for the Senate Act, we are also talking about the need to prevent Russia and other countries. But most of all, you want to make sure that our election system is not hacked by Russia or any other country or entity, and that the heart and soul of American democracy, free and fair elections, remains intact. The good news is that the House passed legislation to update our voting equipment to produce paper voting records and keep voting machines. But for whatever reason, Senator McConnell has blocked that legislation from getting a vote in the Senate. Once again, I say to Senator McConnell, if you want to vote against that legislation, you can vote against it. But I cannot understand why you believe that we should do nothing to stop Russia important than leaving this country and the entire planet healthy and habitable for our kids, our grandchildren, and future generations. Scientists and some of us, unlike the president, actually believe in science. In America, but throughout the world, have told us that we have fewer than 12 years to act boldly in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And that if we do not act boldly, our country and our planet will face irreparable harm. Allow that to happen. Future generations deserve a planet that is healthy and is habitable, and we have the moral responsibility to make sure that they have that kind of planet. But if we do not get our act together, and I don't mean just the United States, I'm talking about, I am more than aware that there are a lot of workers in Kentucky who have relied on coal mining jobs to support their families. So let me be as clear as I can be. Coal miners, and I speak as probably the most pro-worker member of the United States Senate. Coal miners are not my enemy. Workers in the fossil fuel industry are not my enemy. Climate is out. I understand that workers in the fossil fuel industry, like all workers, are doing everything they can to feed their families and to take care of their basic needs. For decades, coal miners have seen their pensions cut, They have seen their health care benefits slashed. They have seen their jobs disappear. They have to accept their short-term profits. The reality is that Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump have abandoned these communities. Well, let me be clear. Unlike McConnell and unlike Trump, I am not going to turn my backs on communities in this country who are hurting. We are going to rebuild, get paid as soon as possible. So let me be also as clear as I can be in saying here in Kentucky, what I said the other day in Paradise, California, which some of you remember suffered that horrendous fire which killed 86 people, and what I have said in Vermont and what I have said all over this country. And that is, climate change is real, caused by human activity, and climate change is causing devastating harm in our country and throughout the world. And I agree with those scientists who tell us that we have a short period of time to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. But here is my goal. We will not abandon communities that have relied on fossil fuel jobs. We will rebuild those communities. We will create millions of jobs modernizing our electricity grid and building the wind, solar, and other sustainable energies that our country and the world desperately need. We will expand high-speed internet in America. And we will guarantee the right of all workers to form unions without threats or intimidation from corporate CEOs. As some of you may know, I have introduced sweeping climate change legislation. Others have introduced different ideas. But the bottom line is, for the sake of the future of our country and our planet, to act. So I say to Mitch McConnell, stop your obstructionism. Bring climate change legislation to the floor of the Senate. Let's have that debate. Let's have that vote. Let us save the planet. Now, I think the question that a lot of Senator McConnell do what he does. Why does he oppose virtually every piece of legislation that protects working families while supporting legislation that gives huge tax breaks to billionaires? And why does he come forward and say that we should cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and education? And yes, of his long career, Senator McConnell has received huge amounts of campaign contributions from Wall Street companies like Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, J.P. Morgan Chase, and hedge funds. He has received huge amounts of contributions from the healthcare industry, including companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, Eli Lilly. Well, they oppose raising the minimum wage. They oppose guaranteeing health care to all Americans as a human right through a Medicare for all single-payer program. They oppose taking any action that would lower the outrageous cost of prescription drugs in this country. They oppose any legislation to combat climate change. And of course, the NRA opposes. That is what Senator McConnell's campaign contributors oppose. Let me tell you what they support. They support huge tax breaks for the billionaire class and large corporations. And we should be clear that Senator McConnell has delivered for them. They support deregulating Wall Street, and Senator McConnell has delivered for them. They support cutting Social Security. People want is what McConnell's campaign contributors and McConnell himself oppose. And what the American people oppose is what is one. So I got a radical idea. Senator McConnell, why don't you listen to the people of Kentucky and America? Complicated. On one hand, you got a struggling working class in this country who are fighting for decent paying jobs. They're fighting for health care to do exactly the opposite of what Trump and McConnell are trying to do. They are trying to divide us up based on the color of our skin, based on where we were born, based on our religion, based on our sexual orientation, and based on their idea of democracy. Well, our idea is just a little bit different. Our idea is that we're going to bring working people together, black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native American, gay and straight, immigrant and native born. We're going to come together. We're going to say to Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, about kids not being able to go to college. And that is why we are going not only to make public colleges and universities tuition free, we're going to cancel all student debt. Now, Mitch McConnell will tell you that that's an expensive proposition. And he's right. But it is an expensive proposition, Mitch, to bail out. It is an expensive proposition to give over $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% in large profitable corporations. It is an expensive proposition, Senator McConnell, to allow for a tax system that enables Amazon to make $10 billion in profits last year and not pay a nickel in federal income tax. So when we are modest, now Trump and McConnell, they tried and lost by one vote to throw 32 million Americans off the health care that they have. Here in Kentucky, the Affordable Care Act is a lifeline for hundreds of thousands of people in the state. And McConnell and Trump want to end it for 32 million people off the health care. By the way, Mitch, instead of giving tax breaks to your billionaire friends, we are finally going to create a tax system that forces them to start paying their fair share. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world, which pays teachers in America a minimum of $60,000 a year. Instead of ignoring climate change, we will lead the world in transforming the global energy system and create millions of good paying jobs. Mitch McConnell pushed very hard for this disastrous Citizens United. Brothers and sisters, let us go forward together. And let us demand that Mitch McConnell have the guts, have the courage to at least put legislation on the floor of the Senate that will improve life for the working families of this country. Senator McConnell, end the obstruction. Let us address the needs of the working class of this country. Thank you all.
Buying Jeepa in Portland.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Well, it was all worth it.
Okay, we were here together.
Everyone, thanks so much for watching. That was Bernie here in Louisville. He's got some words for Mitch. Great atmosphere. Yeah, thanks for joining me. Please like, follow, share, subscribe, and always, always think critically.
I got one.